Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise to give you the crucial insights. And today, we're really digging into a story that's developing as we speak, the disappearance of a little boy, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro. Okay, let's try to unpack this one. We've got a mix of breaking news updates, some investigative reports coming out. It's a missing child case, but it's got these really puzzling turns already. So our mission today is to sift through those facts, pinpoint what seems most critical right now, and maybe explore why these kinds of investigations can get so complex so fast. I want to give you that informed perspective on a story that's, still very much active. It all started, tragically, back on August 14th, 2025. That's when Rebecca Haro reported her son, Emmanuel, only 7 months old, kidnapped. Her initial story placed it in the parking lot of a Big Five sporting goods store. This is in Yucaipa, California. She told NBC Los Angeles a pretty harrowing account. Said she was changing Emmanuel's diaper, laid him on a car seat for a moment, and then she heard someone say, "Hola," after that. She claims she remembers nothing, until she found herself on the floor and her baby was gone. I mean, that's a terrifying scenario. It just immediately grabs you.
Absolutely. And what's immediately crucial in cases like this is recognizing that the initial narrative, no matter how dramatic or how compelling it sounds, it's really just the starting block for investigators. Law enforcement, they're trained to scrutinize every single detail. They're looking for any deviation, any little inconsistency, because even the smallest thing that doesn't quite line up can fundamentally change where they put their resources, the whole direction of the search. It's really about building a rock-solid foundation of verified facts before that investigation can properly move forward.
And, wow, almost immediately, that foundation seemed to develop some cracks. Because just 2 days later, this is August 16th, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, they made a public statement. They said Rebecca Haro was, and I'm quoting here, confronted with inconsistencies in her initial statement and declined to continue with the interview.
Declined to continue. That's significant.
It feels huge. And it wasn't just a minor note. The Sheriff's Department followed up saying that because of these inconsistencies, investigators are unable to rule out foul play in the disappearance of Emmanuel.
That's a major shift, going from reported kidnapping to potentially ruling in foul play.
Exactly. A big change in tone and, you'd assume, investigative focus, right in the middle of an active search for a missing baby. And the spotlight kept moving. A few days after that, on August 19th, detectives took another big step. They collected the car belonging to Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro.
Okay.
They seized it as evidence. And the Sheriff's Department explicitly linked taking the car to those same inconsistencies that had come up in Rebecca's story.
Right.
So it's pretty clear the investigation was already heading down a path quite different from that initial parking lot abduction story.
Yeah, this sequence, from the initial report to seizing a parent's car just days later, it's almost a textbook example of how fast an investigation can pivot based on new information or inconsistencies. When they seize a vehicle like that, especially in a case involving a missing child, it's much more than just, taking the car off the road. They're not just looking for the obvious. They'll be meticulously searching for microfibers, maybe trace DNA, even looking at disturbed dust patterns, indentations on seats. Things you wouldn't even think of.
Tiny details.
Exactly. Tiny details that can build a physical timeline, a timeline that might confirm or maybe completely contradict what's been reported. And when a key witness, particularly a parent in a missing child case, stops talking after being confronted with inconsistencies, well, that's a serious red flag for investigators.
You have to assume so.
It forces them to consider alternative scenarios beyond the initial report. Their focus shifts towards gathering hard, physical evidence that can either back up or refute the statements they've already received. It's critical for maintaining the investigation's integrity, making sure every lead gets vetted, even if it points in a direction that's frankly uncomfortable.
Okay, now let's add another layer here, because there's more complexity involving the father, Jake Haro.
Yeah.
The Orange County Register did some digging into court records, specifically Riverside County Superior Court records. And they found that Jake Haro has a prior felony conviction for child cruelty.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The conviction stems from an arrest back in 2018. He was actually sentenced just last year, June 2023. Got 180 days in jail, plus 48 months of probation.
For child cruelty.
For child cruelty. So, we're not just looking at a missing child situation anymore. We're looking at one where a parent has a documented, relatively recent felony conviction for harming a child.
Yeah.
That context is significant.
It absolutely is.
And then you have the public actions of the parents, which seem to be going in completely opposite directions. It's quite a contrast. So, while Rebecca Haro declined to continue her interview, Jake's lawyer, Vincent Hughes, he went public Very public. He was on News Nation's Banfield show on August 19th, stating very clearly that Jake was willing to cooperate.
Okay, so the opposite of Rebecca's stance.
Completely. Hughes even challenged the sheriff's department directly on national TV. He said, and this is a direct quote, "I'm telling you right now, Ashley, on national news, if the San Marino County Sheriff's Department would like to speak with Jake Haro, we can make that happen tonight."
That's a bold move.
It's a public call-out, right? From his lawyer, challenging law enforcement while this investigation is intensely active.
It is, and that prior felony, the child cruelty one, it definitely shapes how investigators are going to view him, even if it's unrelated to Emmanuel's disappearance. Now, it doesn't prove anything about this current case, let's be clear. But it undeniably becomes part of the background, part of the profile of the individuals they're scrutinizing. It influences, the questions they ask, the angles they pursue.
Oh, best to.
And then on the flip side, you have that public statement from Jake Haro's attorney. That's a pretty classic strategic legal play. It's a clear attempt to manage the public narrative, right? To project an image of cooperation, especially when you contrast it with Rebecca declining her interview.
Makes sense. Control the story.
Exactly. It puts the ball back in law enforcement's court, makes them respond publicly, and it can definitely sway how the public sees the parents involved. So you end up with these conflicting public postures from the two parents, all while their child is missing. It creates this really complex, tangled web for everyone, the public, the media, and especially investigators trying to navigate it all. It just raises so many difficult questions about what might actually be happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole evolving Emmanuel Haro case, I mean, with the inconsistencies, the father's background, these conflicting public statements, it really highlights why some mysteries just grab hold of us and don't let go. It makes you think about, the enduring legacy of cases that remain unsolved. We're seeing the intense scrutiny, the investigative challenges playing out in real time here. But what can we learn from history? From those cases that just seem to defy resolution, that refuse to give up their secrets.
That's a great point.
When you look back at some of history's most famous unsolved mysteries, you do start to see these, common threads, don't you? Things that challenge our whole system of finding justice and truth.
You really do. And I think it connects to something fundamental about us. Humans seem almost hardwired to need closure. We crave resolution. So when a story, especially a tragic one, lacks that definitive ending, our minds just naturally try to fill in the blanks. We speculate, we theorize.
Wait, you want the answer?
Exactly. And it's not just idle curiosity. It touches on this deep need we have for order, for justice, for understanding, especially when faced with something chaotic or frightening. These unresolved stories, they challenge our sense of security. And often they expose the very real limitations within our investigative processes, within our legal systems.
Yeah.
That's precisely why they stick with us, why they endure.
Okay, so let's maybe touch on a few of those iconic ones, not just to retell the stories, but maybe to see what lessons they hold about investigation itself. A really devastating one that comes to mind is JonBenet Ramsey, 1996. A 6-year-old girl, a child pageant star, found murdered in her own home in Boulder, Colorado, on Christmas Day, no less. Her parents, even her brother, were under intense scrutiny for years, but decades later, still no definitive killer identified. What made that case so difficult?
JonBenet's case is just a terribly stark example of how critical those very first hours are and how early missteps can permanently muddy the waters. The crime scene itself was compromised pretty significantly very early on. Family, friends were allowed in, which potentially destroyed or contaminated crucial evidence.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
And there was such an intense, immediate focus on the family. Now, whether that was warranted or not is debated, but some argue it delayed looking at broader possibilities early on. All of this just created these deep divisions, fueled competing theories that, persist even today. It really demonstrates how foundational errors, even if made with the best intentions at the time, can create a mystery that becomes almost intractable.
Then there's the case that completely gripped the world in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
The double murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman in 1994.
Oh, yeah.
O.J. Simpson, famously acquitted in the criminal trial, but then later found liable, essentially responsible in the civil trial.
Okay.
So, legally speaking, the person who committed the criminal act remains unidentified. This case really highlights the differences in our legal system, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The Simpson case became this global spectacle, largely because it threw the differences between criminal and civil justice into such sharp relief. A criminal trial requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt That's a very high bar to clear.
Much higher than civil.
Much higher. And the failure to meet that standard in the criminal court, despite what many felt was overwhelming evidence, and despite the later civil verdict, it leaves this permanent question mark hanging in the air about the criminal responsibility. It's just a powerful illustration of how the strict letter of the law can sometimes diverge from what society perceives as justice, leading to this perpetual debate about what truth really means within a legal framework.
Okay, let's jump much further back.
Yeah.
Maybe to the most iconic unknown killer of them all, Jack the Ripper.
Flies.
1888, London. An unidentified serial killer terrorizing the Whitechapel district. Over a century later, we still have no idea who he was. What does this historical puzzle tell us about the very beginnings of crime solving?
Jack the Ripper is, it's like a grim masterclass in the limitations of forensic science and investigative methods back then. You think about it. No DNA analysis, no reliable fingerprinting, no sophisticated crime scene preservation techniques that we rely on today.
None of that existed.
Right. Investigators were largely dependent on eyewitness accounts, which are notoriously unreliable and very rudimentary criminal profiling. The whole concept of a serial killer was barely even understood at the time. So the enduring mystery isn't just about who the killer was, it's also about how this case, in many ways, forced the development of the systematic investigative approaches we now almost take for granted. It shows how profoundly crime and our understanding of how to investigate it have evolved. It's like a historical benchmark what happens when a predator operates before the tools to reliably catch them even exist.
And one more, a case that literally changed how we buy things off the shelf. The Chicago Tylenol murders in 1982.
Chilling.
Absolutely chilling. A series of poisoning deaths. Someone tampered with Tylenol capsules, lacing them with potassium cyanide. 7 people died from the original poison bottles. And the person who did it, still unknown.
This case stands out because the motive wasn't personal, not in the way we usually think of murder. It seemed like a calculated, widespread act designed to cause terror, or perhaps for some other obscure reason. The lack of a clear target, no direct link between the killer and the victims, made the investigation incredibly difficult. Where do you even start?
Exactly.
It had this massive, immediate impact, fundamentally changing product safety and packaging around the world. Tamper-evident seals, new manufacturing rules that all came directly from this.
We see those seals every day.
We do, but the person responsible remains anonymous. It just highlights the extreme difficulty in catching perpetrators when the evidence is deliberately obscured, when the motive is unclear or diffuse, and the impact is so incredibly broad. It left this indelible mark, not just on public fear, but on corporate responsibility too.
So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, we come back to the present, back to 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro. We have to acknowledge that the search for him, the investigation into his disappearance, it's still very much happening right now. Things could change tomorrow. But exploring these real-time complexities alongside these historical enigmas, cases like Jack the Ripper or the Tylenol murders, it really does reveal something, doesn't it? It shows this persistent challenge we face in finding justice, finding understanding, whether the case is unfolding today or happened over 100 years ago.
Yeah. Indeed. These mysteries, both the old ones and the new ones, like Emmanuel Haro's, they really force us to confront the limits of what we can actually know for sure. They highlight the limitations that are just inherent in any investigation, no matter how diligent or well-resourced it might be. They push us, or they should push us, to think critically, to question the evidence we're given, to analyze the narratives presented, and to be comfortable sometimes in those uncomfortable spaces where the truth just remains, well, elusive.
Yeah, that uncertainty is hard.
It is. So maybe the final thought for you to consider is this. What does it really say about us as a society that we continue to grapple with these deep mysteries? Some, like Jack the Ripper, for well over a century. We keep searching, keep analyzing, keep hoping for clarity. Perhaps it's a testament to our enduring belief in the possibility of justice, our relentless human drive for answers. Or maybe, just maybe, it reflects our collective unease with the simple, stark idea that some questions might never truly be answered.